Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another outstanding installment from very high above all the puerile and vacuous forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly and permanently ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday. We have 3 days to go before the 2024 primary election is all official. Already, there are some races that are shaping up to be absolutely fascinating to watch. One of them is down in Senate District 6, which, by my count today, there are already 6 candidates filed to run, and the incumbent isn't one of them yet. Of course, that is Senator Anthony Bouchard's district, or at least he holds the seat right now. But there are 6 people that are challenging his retention. Now, there's some question as to whether or not Senator Bouchard is actually going to file for re-election. I've been hearing rumblings that he may not. Knowing Anthony, however, usually when he files for a race, he's loud and proud from the very beginning. And we haven't seen that, so that might be an indication that he's not going to run this year. But there again, we'll have to wait until Friday at 5 o'clock to see which way he's decided to go. There's quite a bit of political gamesmanship that happens behind the scenes when candidates are considering whether or not to run for office. Some of them think that it's better to come out right from the very beginning and say, I'm running, beat me if you can. There's another train of thought, however, to wait and see who files to run and then maybe file right at the last minute, just so that nobody has an opportunity to get out ahead of any other candidate. I happen to be of the first group. I think if you're going to file for office, you may as well come out from the very beginning and just show people who's going to be in the race. But there again, that's just me. Representative Ember Oakley has finally decided that she'll fill out the paperwork and run for office. That one's going to be a fun one to watch. Of course, we've already heard from her challenger, Joel Guggenmoss. Let's just say there's plenty of ammunition against Redcoat Representative Ember Oakley. Then, of course, there's House District 12. That's Clarence Stivar's seat. Evidently, Clarence Stivar has to run against proven Democrat Thomas Lear. Interesting that a Democrat is running in the Republican primary. Therein lies the problem with Wyoming's primary election. It's relatively easy for a Democrat to switch parties before the primary filing date and then run as a Republican. Of course, on last week's edition of Weekend Updates, I told you exactly who Thomas Lear is. He has been a lifelong Democrat, and up until at least as late as February 14th of 2024, he was a registered Democrat in Laramie County. And, as you might imagine, he's running as a conservative Republican. Right. All the way to the northern part of Wyoming, there's Senate District 22. And in that race, you have Representative Mark Jennings, one of the most conservative legislators in the state, running against Representative Poisonberry Crego, arguably one of the most liberal legislators in the state. Poisonberry is another one of those that every piece of his campaign literature says that he is a conservative Republican, even though he voted to spend way more money than almost all of the Democrats. Poisonberry Crego votes with the Democrats an average of 83.7% of the time. Clearly not a conservative Republican. Barry Crego is a redcoat, and he's one of the top guys in the Wyoming caucus. So that race ought to shape up to be fairly interesting, I'm thinking. Over in Campbell County, there's a number of races that don't have opponents in them. One of them is in Wyoming House District 52. That seat is currently held by Representative Reuben Tarver. As of this broadcast, nobody has filed to run against him. My pal Joey Correnti and I caught up with Reuben last week. Here's our conversation. Joining me on the program is Representative Reuben Tarver. Reuben is from Campbell County, and he's seeking re-election. Also in the studio, kind of, is our pal Joey Correnti down in Saratoga. So first, gentlemen, welcome to the program. First time for you, Reuben.
Yes, sir, David. Thank you, and I appreciate being on the show with you.
And Joey, is the wind blowing about 1,000,000 miles an hour like it is up here in Sheridan?
Oh, you have no idea, David. I'm glad that I could get on because, my internet, it tends to crap out as soon as the wind really gets going. But interested in hearing what the candidate has to say, and I'll try to stay out of your way as much as possible and chime in if I've got a gold nugget to toss your way.
Fair enough. All right. So, Reuben, as this is your first time on the program, why don't you go ahead and just tell my listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born and raised on a ranch north of Gillette, and I'm still on a ranch with my mom, and we help her run that. And then I got into the oil field, probably around 95, 96. Started a few different companies, and we're still active in the oil field. Have a business in Worland and a business here north of Gillette. And, I wasn't overly involved in politics until, I'd say the last 6 to 7 years. I'd say the Obama administration really started to open my eyes. And that's when the regulations started to increase and our profits started to decrease. And I started to pay closer attention to our state politics and local politics. Of course, everything runs downhill, so federal politics dictate what happens here. And that's when I had enough, and my wife said either shut up or put up. And so Bill Fortner came to me, and he was going to run for the Senate position, and said, hey, let's do it. And so I did, and I feel like it might have been one of the best decisions I've ever made. The only mistake I made, I knew politics was corrupt, but I underestimated how badly it was corrupt and how much they don't care about the people. And I can't even believe I'm saying this. They do not care. And when I say the people, I'm here for the taxpayers and the people that have paid in. So the retirees and the people that are actually contributed, them are the people I'm fighting for. And of course, our state and our country.
Fair enough. Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about the bureaucracy in our state for a little bit. Wyoming is either number 1 or number 2 in the size of government per capita. Last figure I heard was that we have 800 state employees for every 10,000 Wyoming citizens. And, with any bureaucracy, the swamp just gets deeper, man. So if you were to put your finger on it, what would you say is the most corrupt part of Wyoming's government?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that a person could put their finger on any one thing. Now, I will say one thing. Well, okay, you can. Accountability. And that's the biggest thing I see in a lot of these state agencies. It doesn't matter which one you're talking about. You can literally put your finger on almost any of them, and it's accountability for doing your job. When you own your own business, and someone's not accountable, what do? You get rid of them. And it's much more difficult when you get into, I don't want to specify any one. You can literally pick all of them. These folks get these jobs. They're not doing their jobs. And there's nothing we can do about it, or there's nothing that we are doing about it. And it comes from leadership. I believe we don't have the right leadership at the top to filter down to the bottom, and we don't have accountability to go along with that. The whole society as a whole right now, we're not being accountable. And I know you guys have touched on this, the Republican Party. What does it mean to be a Republican? Well, nothing. You can literally vote any way you like. There's no accountability. You can call yourself anything you want. There's no accountability. This whole country's having an accountability problem. Sorry to ramble, but anyway, I get going and can't stop.
No, I think that's a great place for us to start, Reuben. And actually, I was going to ask you at some point during our interview, to you, what does it mean to be a Republican, or perhaps put another way, what does it mean to actually be conservative in your mind?
Well, conservative is just like the word says. You're conservative with how you dictate policy, how you spend money, how you grow government, how you run the state. And I've had this conversation with a couple of legislators that have been in the game a long time, and I said, I don't understand why we don't run the state like a business, money in, money out. It seems very simple to me. And they said, well, it's not a business, it's an institution. And okay, yeah, I understand that aspect of it. There's things that we're nonprofit. I get it, but you still shouldn't be spending more than you're making, and our population hasn't really grown, but yet we increase our spending anywhere from 8 to 14% every year. It's the same amount of people, and we're increasing spending. So why are we increasing the spending? I have yet to get a definite answer on these things. We should be shrinking it. We have a massive spending problem in this state. And of course, the federal government's coming after our coal industry. They're coming after our oil and gas industry. They're coming out after everything that actually pays our bills. And what are we doing as a state to fight back? In my mind, very little. And that's also why I ran federal overreach. We should be suing daily. And we even had a bill that we ran this year, which would have put 70 million or 75 million, can't remember the exact number, aside specifically to fight the federal government. And of course, who vetoed it. And it infuriates me. Sorry.
Well, Reuben, I've heard you say a couple different things, and I kind of want to clarify a little. The first statement you came out and made was that there's, across all the state agencies, there's no accountability, and it seems to be a leadership problem. Now, every state agency outside of the judiciary and the legislature, co-equal branches of government, falls under the executive branch. So as a leadership problem, is that an indictment of Governor Gordon poorly managing his top level decisions for each of these state agencies? Because if not, then I would need to know, what is the legislature's role in managing these agencies to hold them more accountable?
I think you picked up on what I was putting down real well. And that's where we have to start. We have to have a leader in this state that is a leader. This is very frustrating. Why are we not leading the fight on all of these issues? Title IX, the federal overreach on the RMPs. Now they're wanting to raise the bonding on the oil wells, the CO2. Why have we not been leading the charge on this? Why did we comply when they wanted to shut down businesses in our state in 2019? We had to look to South Dakota and Florida to see what real leadership looks like. And I'm not trying to bash our governor. That's not my intent here. But I don't believe we're running this state correctly, and that's part of my frustrations. To answer your question, yes, it's a top-down situation here. We have to have strong leadership. That leader has to put an AG in. I think that should be an elected position also. We need to have an AG that's got sharp teeth and a big bat. And I guess, I don't know, it doesn't look like to me we're doing near enough to defend what actually pays the bills here in Wyoming.
All right, let me follow up.
Well, I don't know if I could argue with that. Let me jump into the second part of my question, because there was two things Reuben said here. The first one was the indictment of the leadership on the state agency side. The other one was the budgetary spending problem. Now, that is something the legislature has, direct control over. The appropriations can only come out of the legislature. We just had a budget session. What do you think needs to be done in the legislature? And not so much the better budget, the smaller government, but what is your plan to achieve support and success in addressing the budget issues? Because it doesn't seem to be so much a spending problem. That's always been a problem, but it's a success in changing the process problem. So what is your plan to achieve support in changing the process and the result of how we're budgeting?
Well, that's another great question, and I'm gonna tackle that question a couple different ways. So you guys already know the answer to this, but there's a 2636 vote count. Okay. And for the people that are listening, don't know what that is, there's 26 conservatives that vote a certain way, conservative, and then there's 36 others that don't. Now, out of that 36, there's 31 of those that are Republicans that vote with the Democrats, the 5 Democrats, a majority of the time. Okay. This kind of falls back into what's it mean to be a Republican. But anyway, we have to get to answer your question. How do I fix this? I personally, by myself, cannot do anything other than to talk to you guys, talk to everyone that I meet, and tell the voters, you really need to get involved in looking at who you're voting for. Please, please, please look at their voting record. Do some due diligence. When you go to vote, you do not have to fill in every oval. It's okay if you don't know who you're voting for to not fill that in. But that's the biggest thing I've been telling folks. Please don't fill in the oval just because it says Republican, because literally that means nothing at this point. I hope that answered your question.
All right. Well, you've got kind of a different business. Well, actually, a way to put it would be you have sort of a unique business. You own a couple helicopters, right, Reuben?
Yes, sir. Those are more for fun than for anything. I've tried to get those to where I can make money with them, but that's also working with another federal agency, and they make it extremely difficult.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going. A lot of the things, or one of the things that you can do in the Wyoming legislature is to push back against federal overreach. And, there's regulations on, you mentioned working in the oil and gas field, with your business, you deal with the FAA, all of that stuff, where if you had to pick, what are 1 or 2 areas you think the state of Wyoming needs to really start pushing back against the Biden administration or the federal government in general? We'll hear Reuben's answer to that in just a second. But first, a completely outrageous profit timeout. Cowboy State Politics is brought to you by Morton Buildings. It's almost summer, my friends. Time is running out for you to figure out which type of building you want to put up on your property. Well, the truth is, it really doesn't matter what kind of building, but it does matter who you're going to have put that thing up. The 2 guys you really need to talk to are Nick and Jesse at Morton Buildings. They are the experts in metal building construction. They've been doing it longer than anybody else around and definitely do a much better job than anybody else. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. You'll receive a 50-year warranty on the foundation, which is something that you're not going to get from any of their competitors. So it doesn't really matter what type of building you're thinking about. Give Nick and Jesse a call, tell them what's on your mind, and they'll handle all the details. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com. Gunrunner Auctions is one of the nation's leading online firearms auction houses, and they're celebrating their 26th year. Scott Weber, the owner, specializes in estate firearms. The first thing he does is he travels to the estate and appraises the firearms for the heirs. He then takes them to his Cody auction facility where he and his team research them, sometimes getting factory letters from the Cody Museum about each firearm's history. And then every month, beginning on the 7th, Scott and his team post 500 fine firearms for sale. Winchesters, Colts, rare military weapons, a large selection of ammunition. All of the auctions start at $20, and there's absolutely no reserve. Gunrunner Auctions only charges 15% for selling your precious guns. So if you're thinking about a new gun, or an old gun, or a collector gun, or a gun that you're never going to fire, or if you're not even considering a firearm at all, you should visit gunrunnerauctions.com. I promise you, once you're there, you'll definitely have the itch to bid on one. That's gunrunnerauctions.com. The following advertisement was paid for by Reed Reisner for Senate.
I'm Reed Reisner, and I'm running for United States Senate because our politicians have forgotten what's important. They spend billions protecting borders in Europe and do nothing about our border. You deserve better. Wyoming deserves better. That's why I'm running, to serve you. Join me, and let's send new blood and a strong backbone to D.C. before it's too late. Go to reedreisner.com to learn more and join the fight.
Campaign season is in full swing, and you have to be sure to get your message out to your constituents. The best way that you can do that is to advertise on Cowboy State Politics. Nobody is going to beat my advertising rates. I have a statewide platform, and trust me, this program is listened to by a lot of people across the political spectrum. Shoot me an email, david@cowboystatepolitics.com. Start your campaign the right way. Advertise on Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to the program.
Wow, that's a tough one. Can I say all of the above? Our federal lands are, this is bittersweet. So I had this conversation 2 years ago with some legislators from the west corner of the state. And I said, listen, we have to start pushing back against the feds. Oh, no, the feds are, we work with them. And I said, listen, the 30 by 30 plan, it's coming. The 50 plan is coming. You guys are being foolish. And well, we don't want to rock the boat because then we won't be able to get our federal money. And that's just free money. Of course, that irritates me when people say free money. There's nothing free about it. It comes with massive regulations. But anyway, to pinpoint what we need to push back on, I would say it's federal money. We have to stop taking federal money. And I've talked to many, many constituents about this. I said, are you guys willing to sacrifice some of this federal money for your freedom? And they're all willing. I had one couple tell me they would, go back to driving on dirt roads if that's what it took to keep our freedom. I think that's taking it to the extreme. But the point is, the people that I represent, and maybe there's some that would disagree, but they are all for getting the federal government out of our hair. And I think the people of Wyoming, for the most part, are too. But the old guard that have been in there for 5 terms, 6 terms, 7 terms, all you hear from them and is, we can't survive without the federal government. And they're right. With that attitude, and that's a can't do attitude, you'll never figure it out. And I'm not that type of guy. I will figure out a way. And I think there's plenty of folks down there right now that I serve with, and they all feel the same way. We will figure out how to survive without the federal government. And we have to.
Well, you're exactly right. And the truth is, just to pick one category, education. All I heard last session was, well, we can't sacrifice the federal money in education. Well, the truth is, it only accounts for 11 or 12% of the total education budget. And, and this is where I want to go next with this. When we see surpluses from property taxes of $500, $600, last year was $700 million. There's no reason why we have to take that 11 or 12% for education. I mean, we could do away with it tomorrow and we would be just fine. So we definitely have, and this is kind of a two-pronged question here, but we definitely have a problem with property taxes. Now, you were down there. You went through all the votes, all the bills. If it were up to Representative Tarver, what would you do to fix our property tax system?
And this is an interesting topic. So Mr. Harshman came to me and with his 203 bill, and at first glance I thought, wow, this is unbelievably neat, and I wanted to research and dive into it deeper. And the more I did, the more I figured out that's a slippery slope. We add a 2% sales tax, and we get rid of property tax, but we don't really get rid of it. We just enable the state not to charge for personal property tax. And then I started thinking about all the places up north that would be affected, the Sheridans and all of the small towns on the northern part of the state. Montana's right there. So if we went to, that would bump us all to what, 6%, somewhere around there.
Yeah, something like that.
7%. So we're going to have a massive effect on that. And then of course, out of their mouths, the next sentence is, we got to help these young people buy homes, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to get rid of property tax. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, so we would be I believe we would have been the only state without property tax. So in my mind, that would increase the volume of people coming to Wyoming simply for that fact. So how would that be helping our young people get houses? Because we would have another market boom. Okay, so after thinking about that, thinking about zero, I went and started talking to some folks, some of my constituents. I reached out and we had long conversations about this, and they said, our taxes aren't that bad. Why are we messing with it? And I really give that some deep thought. Yes, have they went up? Big time. Do I like Mark Jennings' plan of going from is it acquisition, I believe?
Yeah.
I think that would be the simplest fix. If you can afford to come in and overpay for a home that was worth $100,000, 5 years ago, and it's worth $300,000 now. If you can afford to pay that, then you can probably afford to pay the tax. And the folks that have lived here their whole lives and passed their homes down generation to generation. To answer your question, I believe that would be the simplest fix. But for some reason, and then put a 2% or a 3%, yearly inflation they could put on that. But man, that idea didn't go very far, and I don't know why. I don't think we had enough conservative minds at work. That would be my number one to fix the problem. But listen, guys, this problem's not going away. As long as the federal government continues to print money, which is called fiat money, there's nothing backing it, and they're printing it like monopoly money, we're never going to see the end of this inflation. So I don't know how the state's I don't know how we're going to combat this. This is something that I've been talking to folks about, and man, I'm open for ideas. We can slow down the property tax, but I don't know how we're ever going to stop it fully as long as they keep destroying the dollar.
Well, glad you said you're open to ideas, because we've heard a couple ideas, and I know you're up there in the northeast corner of the state. But over in the northwest corner of the state, there was a meeting a couple weeks ago where a few Republican legislators stood up and said, we might be able to address this problem by offering property tax relief to renters. So what do you think about that idea?
Well, here's the thing. So as a renter, you're kind of subjective to what the owner wants to do, and I've thought about that too. So if a person cut the property tax, if we the state cut the property tax, do you think they would cut the rent, the owners of the property?
Heck no.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. So are we going to force them to? I mean, man, we got to be real careful here what we want to get involved with. I'm a big fan of being free, and I think we have to be careful how many more rules we make. You look at the green books now, and you can barely pack them all. You have to have a back brace. And how many of them do we even follow anymore? I don't know. I think we need to be careful on what we do here and not make any haste decisions. I still think Mark Jennings' plan is the acquisition. Go ahead.
There you go. I was going to say, David did say you might get a few curveballs, and that was one of them. Yeah. I don't know that you could legitimately offer property tax relief to people that don't pay property taxes. Now, you're right. They pay them in some format, but it's capitalism. Rent is rent. And just because we give the property owner some kind of tax break doesn't mean it's going to trickle down to the end user. So, yeah, that was one of those curveballs, and kind of glad you came away the way you did with that.
Well, it'll just offer a larger profit margin for the owners is how I would look at that. And it's the way it is.
Well, in my mind, we could solve a lot of these problems if we just got government out of the way.
Yes.
I'm one of those people that thinks that the free market will pretty much take care of just about any problem we have, and where we get derailed on that is we start monkeying with the free market and passing all sorts of rules and regulations, and it's really infuriating to me. Well, Reuben, as you're running for re-election, maybe we ought to talk about just kind of some real quick boilerplate type questions. Where are you on abortion?
Pro-life.
All right. Guns?
I think everyone should own at least 10 or 15. It upsets me that we can't all have fully automatics, but very much pro-gun.
Excellent. So what was your reaction to the governor vetoing the gun-free zones bill?
David, I feel like you're just poking the bear there a little bit.
Maybe just a little.
Very upset. This is a no-brainer. I don't understand what the argument's even about. And here's how I bring this back to people that want to argue with me about it, and I said, well, put your wife up against me in a fight. How well do you think she'll do? Maybe she's super tough, but odds are I will more than likely win that fight. Now, give her a gun. What's the odds? And I do not understand how this doesn't resonate with everybody. My daughters, everyone. I want everyone that I know to have the best chance of defense. Now, does that mean everyone should be carrying a gun if they're not comfortable? Absolutely not. But anyone that's willing and can legally have a gun, I think we should have the right to have one and carry it. And you guys have obviously been down to the legislator. We're fish in a barrel.
Oh yeah,
sitting in there, and to get a gun in there would be no big deal. And literally waiting on the state patrol to get up there. I'm sure they would get up there quickly, as fast as they could, but they're not going to get up there instantly. And if we were able to have firearms on our sides, we could at least defend ourselves. And I feel that way about anyone, anywhere. The Constitution pretty well explains it, why we make all these rules. And that's the problem with government. We don't make anything better with more laws. We just seem to make them worse. And I'd love to see some type of bill where we would attach, you have to get rid of 2 bills to bring a new one forth. I think that might be a fun little bill to run.
Well, that's definitely a regulatory posture that I've been a fan of in the past. Every new regulation requires you to get rid of 2. But let's switch gears a little and talk about your race specifically. This is kind of an open-ended question. You can go whatever direction you want with it, but I haven't heard of you having an opponent. But do you know if there's any opponent, or have you heard any outside opposition commentary from political action committees, associations, other legislators talking about your race, your candidacy? Any comments or pushback on you running for office? Because we see that in a lot of other races, but I haven't heard it so much in yours yet.
No, I haven't. And I'm very open to everyone that I represent. If they have any problems, I want them to call. If they have different ideas, different thoughts, if they don't like something I'm doing, I am more than open to talk to everybody. And I've had a lot of folks reach out to me. And we've had some great conversations, and philosophically, we may be a little bit different, but on the whole, they're very happy with how I'm performing. And honestly, last year, I was just trying to figure out what we're doing. This year was my first budget year. I was very disappointed in how it went. We were able to block a lot of spending. And of course, what good did it do? Which kind of brings me back to that 26-36 I was talking about earlier. We just don't have the votes to stop anything right now, and it just makes you sick. Guys, I wish I could say that, everything's great. It's not. We have to get more conservative voices down there if we are going to turn this ship around. And anyway, I'll stop at that.
No, I completely agree with you. Well, Reuben, we've taken up about 30 minutes of your time. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, I'm right there on the website. That's my actual phone number. You can text me. You can call me. Don't expect me to answer the phone, but you can text, or my email's on there also. And I try to reach out to everybody that's a constituent, and I try to reach out to other folks that have questions too in the state, but all of my constituents will get either a phone call, text, or an email back if they're in my area. And please call. I like to listen to all the different ideas. I am very open-minded, and I feel like I'm down there doing some good, and I'm trying.
Excellent. Well, appreciate you taking the time to visit with us on a Sunday afternoon. You're welcome back here anytime you like, Reuben. Good luck, and let us know if there's anything that you think everybody needs to know about.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Reuben. That'll do it for today's installment of Cowboy State Politics. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the program. That way you can be notified every single time there's a brand new episode of Cowboy State Politics. You can do that at the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. I have several more interviews already recorded, and there's much more to come, so make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.